By far, this is my favorite scene in the entire anime.
法使いだ。フリーレン、魔族が言葉で人を欺くように、お前は魔力で魔族を欺くんだ。アウラ、自害しろ。
Let's take a deeper look and see how we got here. One of the first interactions between Frieren and her master Flamma is one where Frieren expresses the knowledge of Flamma's immense power. This surprises the powerful mage, as she has always made an intense and consistent effort to hide her mana levels. We later discover that she does this specifically to kill demons. You see, the demons are a proud bunch, and due to the simplicity of their civilization, power and power alone denote status. So, for the demons, one's mana is as essential as one's birth into nobility or peasantry. Flamma makes a mockery of this through her mana suppression. The demons are often fooled into attacking what they perceive as a lesser enemy and killed easily. This concept reminds me of the third law of power amongst the 48 written by Robert Greene, Conceal Your Intentions. In the chapter, Greene writes about Otto von Bismarck and how he unified Germany as the head of Prussia through hiding his intentions and suppressing himself in a way very similar to the mage Flamma. Just like Flamma, he made a mockery of traditional politics in Prussia. In the mid-1800s, the then King of Prussia was against going to war with Austria and unifying Germany. Bismarck was a deputy in the Prussian parliament and a proud soldier, certainly on the side of war. But when it came time to vote, he acted vehemently against any war effort. He was promoted by the king for his anti-war position. He used the new position to strengthen the Prussian army and consolidate his political power. Eventually, he became the premier of Russia, and when it was time, he led the country into war. He crushed Austria and unified Germany just as he planned. Flamma used the exact approach with her concealment to kill even the most powerful demons. She passed this strategy on to Frieren, who in turn passed it on to Fern. Just as Bismarck's deception culminated in the unification of Germany, in episode 10 of the anime, Flamma's strategy leads to the rather unfair defeat of Aura the Guillotine, Sage of Destruction, a great demon who has practiced her magic for more than 500 years. Aura represents exactly the type of demon that Flamma's strategy best counters. In the Guillotine arc, Aura and Frieren are locked in battle, with Aura sending hundreds of puppet soldiers to engage Frieren. Aura could have overpowered Frieren with the sheer number of her undead soldiers, but because of her pride and confidence in her mana, she invoked her signature magic, Asalisa. It weighs the soul of the target against Aura's soul. The one with the greater mana gains total control over the other. It's a high risk, high reward spell, and the type that only an arrogant demon would use. Aura believed that once she had gotten Frieren to use up lots of mana against the puppets, she would become vulnerable to Asalisa. Aura the Guillotine was defeated through pure deception, as the weight of Frieren's immense hidden mana swung the scale in her direction, giving Frieren total control over Aura's body. We all know what happens next. I've played this clip maybe 100 times. Frieren's use of the third rule of power is what bested Aura in this battle. The deception was far more powerful than any magic that could have been invoked. Consider the value and utility of concealing your intentions as you go about restricting and defeating your enemies.
I am. This is a powerful foe.
But your hands, they're out of control. You afraid?
Yes.
Didn't take much to get that out of you.
Being afraid isn't a bad thing. Without fear, I wouldn't have made it this far.
We've all been here before. The nerves before an important event. Palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. I'm just playing. But we've all felt the nerves when doubts start to creep in and adrenaline files. The way I used to conquer this as a kid is that I used to tell myself that I was shaking because I cared and wanted to do my best. That motivated me to push through despite the challenge. We can all see a bit of ourselves in Stark. He's unbelievably powerful, but he shakes and trembles at the prospect of engaging a powerful foe in battle. Stark has been living in the village for 3 years following his confrontation with a solar dragon that has set up a nest just outside the city. The dragon elected not to attack Stark and instead left the village alone. Stark viewed this as merely lucky, as he was terrified to face the dragon. Unbeknownst to him, the dragon was equally terrified at the prospect of crossing scales with such a foe. He underestimates his own strength, but it turns out that the dragons of this universe are incredibly perceptive and choose not to engage in fights that pose a significant risk to their health. The dragon was just as scared of him as he was of it. When forced by Frieren's party to engage the dragon, as a distraction, he ends up accidentally killing the beast with relative ease. This was an outcome that only Frieren and Stark's master Eisen could see. Eisen and Stark parted ways in anger, as Eisen had struck Stark with full force, leaving the boy with a large facial scar. Later in episode 6, it is revealed that Eisen hurt Stark out of fear, not anger. He was overwhelmed with the lad's power and hit him in self-defense. This one statement recontextualizes the entire character of Stark. There's a lot we can take away from this arc to recontextualize our own lives. We are all unknowably powerful, and sometimes when an enemy or friend acts aggressively towards us, it is out of fear for our capability. So next time someone strikes you or aggresses you and it seems unprovoked, know that this comes from a deep place of fear. Fear for what you could do if you chose to do it. Also, when it comes to being afraid and cowardly in the face of a tremendous hurdle like the dragon, I'll leave you with a quote from Eisen himself. He said, "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it is the ability to act in spite of fear." Remember this quote next time you are on a stage in front of people, when you are approaching a girl to ask her out, when you have to give a presentation at work or school, and even when it's your turn at the karaoke machine. Remember that even the greatest warriors shook and trembled before battle, and your nerves just show that this matters to you. You are stronger than you will ever know. Go out there and do your best. Be courageous on the front line in the face of your own cowardice, like Eisen and... Ecology and zoology dictate that plants and animals evolve specific features and behavior for survival purposes and no other reason. Parasites develop to look like food so that hosts will consume them. Animals develop skin patterns so they may hide from predators or prey. Frieren shows us in their universe that the demons are much the same. They have developed human appearances and language simply to deceive humans and survive. This is a quality that takes advantage of arguably humanity's greatest flaw, which is that we are easily influenced by the visual. Robert Greene has a quote which describes this predicament. It goes, "The visual is the siren call that seduces the eye, distracts the attention, and deceives all the other senses." The reality is that in daily life there are too many variables that if man was to continuously doubt what one can see, there would be no peace. The demons take advantage of this by outwardly projecting the appearances and mannerisms of human life. Every word they speak and every human visual they present is meant to deceive and nothing else. The demons call to mothers that they do not know when injured because they know it appeals to the heart of man. They ask for peace and diplomacy when they know nothing of it. They speak of family even though that concept does not exist in their culture. In episode 8, one of Aura the Guillotine's lieutenants, Drat, attempts to negotiate for his life after failing to ambush Frieren. She does not even give him the opportunity to speak. She quickly extinguishes the demon in the same way one would swat a mosquito. We do not listen to the plight of the mosquito as he meets the zapper. Frieren understands the true nature of demons and therefore does not give them the opportunity to deceive. Underlining the point further is that when Drat's associates discover his death, their reaction is one lacking in any emotion. In fact, the only thing that really concerns them is the fact that the mage was powerful enough to overcome their fellow demon. Lugnair is a general in the army of Aura the Guillotine. He is very advanced in his human deception and evidently smarter than Drat. He is sent as an emissary by Aura to the nearest city. The demons are unable to attack the city due to a barrier erected centuries ago before by the legendary mage Flammo. The demons were however let inside by the city's leader Granat. Lugnair became aware of the fact that Granat had lost his son in the conflict between the city and Aura's forces. Lugnair appeals to the emotion surrounding the loss by sharing a falsified story of his own loss. This works great in lowering the guard of the city's soldiers. Had it not been for the presence of Frieren's party as well as Drat's hasty decision to ambush Frieren, this city and all its inhabitants would have been lost to the demons and Lugnair's seductions. While you may not be dealing with literal demons in your life, there are still things we can take away from this episode. The key lesson is to always trust a person's nature as opposed to what you can see. Don't be concerned about outward appearances, but instead understand the motivations of the individuals and what they stand to gain by the presented imagery. This will help to guide us to more accurate and sensible decision makings, unlike Granat in this episode. There are no real heroes. What I mean by this is that heroes are not chosen as stories and prophecies will have us believe, but instead heroes are forged through their life choices. In episode 12 titled A Real Hero, Frieren's party travels to the village of the Sword, famous for keeping the hero's sword. The sword attracts demons and monsters. Sensing its threat, they gather to destroy it. Frieren is tasked with periodically clearing out the monsters that have gathered to destroy the sword. While in the sword village, Stark is surprised to see the sword stuck in the rock as the tales he grew up with recollected how the sword was pulled from its stone by Himmel the hero. This in fact did not happen. Himmel failed to pull the sword, but instead defeated the Demon King using a replica he obtained from a merchant. The purpose of this episode is to show that Himmel wasn't the hero from the legends and prophecies. He was instead a real man forged by experiences and supported by his comrades. Himmel only became Himmel the hero because he believed that was who he was. Pulling a sword from a stone does not make you a hero. Your slow accumulation of ability and experience instead is what prepares you for the hero's journey. Himmel felt that his actions are what made him the hero. His journey took 10 years mainly because under his direction the party took every side quest possible to help everyone that they could help, even the simplest of tasks involving no glory. The town itself is interesting because the weather conspires to protect the secrets of Himmel's inability to remove the storied sword. I also find it interesting that Stark learned of this secret just before turning 18, almost as if learning the truth of the sword was a rite of passage into adulthood. Learning that the hero isn't real is akin to discovering that there is no Santa Claus in this universe. It doesn't make the presents any less real, but it removes the magic and whimsy from the occasion. Real life has no whimsy attached to it. In Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, Law 5 seeks to tell us about the power that resides within our reputation. The characters of this episode understand this lesson as Frieren's party and the village of the sword guarded the lie and protected the reputation of Himmel the hero for the sake of maintaining peace and prosperity. This is a good lesson for a young boy because it shows myth and legend are not the things that make one's life memorable, but instead living every day to the philosophy of your life. Carefully crafting your reputation and life to the desired outcome. Himmel wanted to be a hero and he acted that way with every action from the smallest thing to the big task. He was a hero every single day and no single item could ever change that. We can apply this in our lives to become more than our items and live in line with our guiding principles and philosophies. Maybe we too can live long in the memory like Himmel the hero. Frieren once stated that only basic defense and attack magic is required to defeat the mages of this era. The mages of this era are not suited to dungeon battles as all the dungeons were cleared en masse after the Demon King's defeat. Fighting in a dungeon means that a mage has to rely on magical resources generated by the mage, as the environment inside a dungeon is unpredictable. The modern mages rely on the environment for both defense and offense to reduce their mana expenditure. This puts them at a disadvantage because offensive spells that rely on the environment are slow and of course conditionally dependent on where the battle is taking place. One such example from episode 21 is Kana, the third class water mage. She was unable to use her combat spells during the second first class mage exam test. This is because her magic relies on water being close by. She can only control it and cannot create it. The test occurred inside a barrier which split rivers and blocked rainfall. Such a mage would be useless in our labyrinth. As is proven in a later episode, Frieren taught Fern the opposite. One simple offensive spell and defensive magic. She uses them with precision and spams the offensive spell to her victories. Fern is able to overcome modern mages and demons alike with the sheer volume of her spells. She's able to cast an endless barrage, and we have yet to see an opponent that she has faced overcome this approach. The mages and demons of the current era use flashy spells and neglect the fundamentals. Interestingly, I've heard the same thing said about sports, whether basketball or football. Based on rule changes or just entertainment, some players become exceptional in certain areas of the game but neglect core parts, like a modern point guard that has crafted his three-point shot to perfection but can't operate inside the paint, or a modern football striker that has developed the talent and pace to get behind defensive lines but lacks any ability to play with his back to goal and hold up the play. The key takeaway here is that we don't need flashy skills to succeed. Whatever your chosen career path, sport, or even hobby, identify the fundamental tenets of the craft and perfect those. That is enough to carry you to your success.